My 55-year-old mother-in-law was pregnant. Her boy toy showed up at my door, waving a video in my face. "Give me $50,000, and I'll keep my mouth shut about your mother-in-law's reputation," he sneered. My husband, Greg, tried to guilt-trip me into quitting my high-paying job. He wanted me to use my entire life savings to support his mother's pregnancy. But in my past life, that woman stabbed me to death because she thought I wasn't taking good enough care of her. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day she found out she was pregnant. This time, I'm going to make sure my toxic mother-in-law and her mama's boy of a son lose everything. The meeting room doors slammed shut with a loud bang. Everyone in the room turned to me with flattering smiles. Even my arrogant boss had a fake grin plastered on his face. "Jane, I've known you were a star since the day you started here. Now that you're moving up to regional manager, don't you dare forget about us." My colleagues chimed in, their voices overlapping in the small room. "We've been work friends for years, Jane. My next raise is in your hands now. I'm so jealous of you moving to the corporate headquarters in New York. $100,000 a month plus a 5-star hotel suite? That's the dream." I offered a polite, distant smile and didn't say a word. I walked straight out of the office and got into my car. The scent of expensive perfume filled the interior as I watched the familiar city skyline blur past the window. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with congratulatory messages. I could feel my heart racing in my chest. The thrill made my whole body tremble. I had actually been reborn. I was back to the day before the nightmare started. In my last life, I came home excited to share my promotion news, only to find out my 55-year-old mother-in-law was expecting. Greg convinced me to quit my job to look after her. He told me that hiring a nanny wasn't safe, and that only I could provide the care his mother deserved. I became a full-time housewife, slave to her every whim. I cooked, I cleaned, and I endured her constant emotional abuse. A pregnancy at 55 is incredibly dangerous, especially with her history of chronic health issues. Every hospital visit cost thousands of dollars. On top of that, she became obsessed with expensive, fake health supplements. Within a few months, my $1 million savings account was drained. When I complained to Greg, he just gave me a look of pure contempt. "The baby is a human life, Jane. You can't put a price on that. Taking care of my mom is a blessing you should be grateful for." During her checkups, the doctors repeatedly advised her to end the pregnancy for her own safety. She would only respond with screams and rage. "This is a miracle. How dare you call yourself a doctor? I've given birth before. Back in the day, I was working in the fields the day after I had Greg. Giving birth is easy." She once threw a heavy medical tray at a $1 million piece of equipment. Glass shards flew everywhere, slicing into the doctor's skin. Before I could even react, she grabbed a surgical knife and lunged at me. "I know you're in on this with the doctor. You're just jealous because you couldn't get pregnant yourself. You want to kill my son." Her screams echoed through the clinic as she stabbed me repeatedly. By the time security arrived, the room was painted red. The 6-inch blade had pierced my heart. Warm blood pooled in my hands, stinging the calluses I'd developed from doing her laundry by hand all winter. The doctor next to me was dead too, a glass shard embedded in his brain. His eyes were still open, frozen in shock. After I died, Greg rushed to have me cremated. He blocked the police investigation in my name and claimed my massive inheritance. He used my money to fight the doctor's family in court and bought his mother a fake psychiatric report to keep her out of prison. In the end, that woman got away with a double murder. She gave birth to the baby and lived happily with her boy toy. As for Greg, he married a young model on the very day of my funeral. They were inseparable and eventually had twins of their own. Thinking about the pain of my past life made my skin crawl. I snapped my eyes open, my palms slick with cold sweat. The fire of revenge was burning hot in my soul. I turned to my driver and spoke coldly. "Drive faster. I can't wait to get home." The moment I stepped through the front door, the overpowering scent of perfume hit me. Empty designer bottles were scattered all over the floor. In just a few days, my mother-in-law had used up my entire collection of luxury fragrances. I called out for her, but the house was silent. Even the housekeeper I paid for was nowhere to be found. The sofa was covered in cheap, gaudy clothes, and a bright red scarf sat right in the center. Then, I saw my $60,000 custom gown crumpled on the floor like a dirty rag. It was covered in footprints and lipstick stains. I rushed into my bedroom to find my makeup vanity in total disarray. My locked glass wardrobe had been pried open. My designer bags and evening dresses were strewn across the room. Even my limited edition crocodile skin bag had been scratched beyond repair. In my previous life, this was when she started her second youth. She used my credit cards to treat her elderly friends to wild nights out. She even started going to clubs and bars, trying to act like a teenager. At first, I didn't stop her, thinking it was just a phase. But after a short 3-day business trip, I came back to a looted closet. She even bragged about it in front of me. "I'm the boss of this house. Take whatever you want, ladies. We have plenty of money. Look at this house and these brands, and my son worked hard for all of this." Then she looked at me with pure disgust. My daughter-in-law is useless since she can't give me a grandson, but she sure knows how to nag my son. I don't know what Greg sees in her. Before they got married, she was so poor she couldn't even afford a winter coat. Back then, I swallowed my pride for the sake of the marriage. Greg just laughed it off. Jane, you're so successful. You'll make that money back in a month. My mom grew up poor. This is just how she makes friends. Just let her have this. Greg and I had been together since high school. 10 years of history. I didn't want to throw it all away, even though I contributed 100 times more financially than he did. To save face, Greg told everyone he was the primary breadwinner. He acted like he bought the multi-million-dollar mansion and the luxury cars. He even took credit for my walk-in closet. Sure, he picked out the wallpaper, but I paid for every single brick. His meager salary couldn't even cover the tip at a decent restaurant. I pulled out my phone and recorded every inch of the damage. I didn't even skip the space under the bed. I'm going to make sure they pay back every cent. Once I finished, I sent the bill to my mother-in-law. I told her she would pay for the damages or I would see her in court. I slammed the door so hard my hand went numb. I ran a hot bath and let the steam melt away the tension. I applied a cold face mask and leaned back in the tub. I hadn't felt this relaxed in a long time. This time, I'm living for myself. Before I could even get out of the tub, a loud thud shook the bathroom door. I calmly dried off and put on a fresh outfit, ignoring my ruined suit. My mother-in-law's voice shrieked from the hallway. Jane, who gave you permission to use my bathtub? My son bought this for me. Get out. The door was kicked open a second later. I found myself face to face with the raging old woman. Her fake eyelashes were crooked, and her bright red lipstick was smeared. Her wrinkled face looked like a terrifying mask under her thick, cakey foundation. She seemed surprised that I didn't look scared. She glared at me and raised her voice even louder. You've been gone for days. Is this how a wife behaves? You bring home some dirty money and think you own the place. Family values come first. You need to stay home and give Greg a son. As she was about to continue her rant, Greg rushed in. He stood between us, his tall frame acting as a shield for his mother. Looking at his face made my stomach churn with bitterness. 10 years, and he still looked like the boy I fell in love with. But now all I saw was a manipulative, hateful stranger. He made me sick. I told you 1,000 times to take care of my mom. She had a hard life. Why are you making a big deal out of the clothes? A bag is a bag, whether it's $10 or 10,000. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is hers. This isn't about a bathtub, Jane. It's about your attitude. You're being disrespectful to my mother's privacy. He spoke with such unearned moral authority. He gave me a look that was pure poison. I stayed calm and looked him in the eye. Save that speech for the judge, Greg. Let's see if he agrees with you. You. Before Greg could strike back, a foul smell filled the room. His mother started gagging and clutching her stomach. With a loud groan, she collapsed onto the floor. I raised an eyebrow. The real show was about to begin. In the hospital, I saw the same familiar face of the young doctor. He looked at the chart and spoke with a flat tone. The patient is 55. This is an extremely high-risk pregnancy. She has multiple chronic issues and a history of multiple previous losses. Her body simply isn't equipped for this. To be blunt, she'll likely lose the baby. If you insist on trying to save it, the medical bills will be astronomical. You need to think carefully. In my last life, he gave the same warning. But back then, she had spent her life partying, drinking, and staying up all night. Whenever she found a new young man to obsess over, she threw herself into the affair. She had spent a fortune on ending unwanted pregnancies over the years. Greg never cared. He just said his mother had needs. Her body was a wreck from years of neglecting her health. I followed Greg back to her hospital room. The smell of urine was the first thing that hit me. My mother-in-law was red-faced with embarrassment, while the other patients in the shared room stared at her in disgust. It looked like there had already been a confrontation, and she had lost. The moment she saw Greg, she started wailing. Greg, why am I in a shared room? I always stay in a private suite. Being around these poor people is making me sick. And where is my nurse? This is unacceptable. I watched Greg's face turn from red to pale. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. Why was she in a shared room? Because they were broke. The first thing I did after being reborn was disconnect their secondary credit cards. I had even gone to the bank to cancel all their access to my accounts. Just an hour ago, I sold every single luxury car in our garage. I sold them way below market value, and they were gone in minutes. In their place, I bought a rusty second-hand bicycle and left it at the front door. I even spent $5 to put training wheels on it. If it has wheels, it's a vehicle, right? Greg turned to me, his angry expression replaced by a desperate, fawning smile. Jane, honey, mom is pregnant. You need to be a good daughter-in-law. We can't trust a stranger to look after her. Quit your job tomorrow. I'll overlook the car thing if you just take care of her until the baby is born. The woman in the next bed snorted and looked at Greg with pure judgment. My mother-in-law's eyes lit up with greed. Pregnant again? I'm keeping this one no matter what. Greg, you're my only hope. I'll give you a little brother to play with. She shot me a nasty look. Since you're a barren woman who can't even lay an egg, you can be my maid. If you do a good job, maybe I'll let you put your name on the birth certificate. I let out a cold laugh and threw a medical report at Greg's face. The papers scattered across the floor. I had known since our premarital checkup that Greg had a very low sperm count. He was functionally infertile. He had always hidden his medical records from me, and I had stayed silent to protect his ego. But not anymore. Greg's face went white. The woman in the next bed burst out laughing. So the son is the one who can't lay an egg. He's been wasting that poor girl's time. Who's the barren one now? Some people live wild lives and then expect their daughter-in-law to raise their mistakes. I didn't bother arguing with them. As I turned to leave, I ran into Jace Miller. He was my mother-in-law's current favorite boy toy. He was undeniably handsome, with a sharp jawline. He held up his phone, showing a video. Give me $80,000, or I'll tell everyone the truth about where this baby came from. Jace Miller stood in the doorway of the shared hospital ward, holding his phone out like a trophy. On the screen, a video played on loop. My 55-year-old mother-in-law, Evelyn, lying in a plush hotel bed, giggling like a schoolgirl, while handing Jace a stack of $100 bills from my personal safe. $80,000, Jace sneered, his voice loud enough to draw the eyes of every nurse and patient in the corridor. Or this video goes straight to your company's HR department, your neighbors, and every social media platform in the state. Let's see how the virtuous Sterling family handles the public knowing their matriarch pays 20-something college boys with stolen money. Greg's face turned from pale to an ugly mottled red. He lunged forward, grabbing Jace by his leather jacket collar. You bastard. You took advantage of my mother. Took advantage? Jace laughed, effortlessly shoving Greg back against the metal bed frame. Greg stumbled, knocking over a tray of plastic water cups. She came to my gym, offered me 10 grand a month to be her personal trainer, and swore her rich son and daughter-in-law had endless cash. I'm just collecting what I'm owed for services rendered. Evelyn gasped from the bed, clutching her hospital gown over her chest. Jace. Honey. How could you say that? I thought you loved me. I'm carrying your child. Love you. Jace looked at her with pure, unadulterated disgust. You're older than my grandmother. You think I touched you because I liked you? I did it for the money. And now that your daughter-in-law canceled those credit cards, my payment bounced. I stood by the foot of the bed, watching the three of them bark like feral dogs over an empty dish. I didn't hide my smile. I let it bloom across my face, slow and cold. Jace, I said, stepping between Greg and the boy toy. You're asking the wrong person for $80,000. Jace blinked, surprised by my calm demeanor. What do you mean? I don't care about her reputation, I said, pointing at Evelyn. Nor do I care about Greg's. In fact, I'm filing for divorce today. My assets are frozen, my corporate earnings are entirely separate, and I don't owe either of them a single penny. I turned to Greg, whose eyes were wide with panic. If you want $80,000 to protect your mother's honor, Jace, you should ask her son. I continued smoothly. After all, Greg always tells everyone he's the breadwinner. He bought the mansion, he bought the luxury cars. He pays for everything, right, Greg? The patients in the neighboring beds began to whisper and chuckle. 80 grand. A nurse walking by muttered with a scoff. That guy couldn't even pay the $200 deposit for a private room. His card was declined 3 times at the front desk. Jace's eyes narrowed as he looked at Greg. Is that true? You're broke. No. Jane, stop lying. Greg stammered, his voice cracking as he reached out to grab my arm. Jane, give him the money. We can't let this get out. Think about my family's name. Think about my career. I slapped his hand away so hard the sound echoed through the ward. Your career? I sneered. You make $40,000 a year as a low-level clerk, Greg. You couldn't afford the shoes on my feet, let alone $80,000 for your mother's gigolo. Pay him yourself. I turned on my heel and walked out of the room, listening to Jace cornering Greg in the hallway, demanding cash while Evelyn screamed hysterically for an anesthesiologist. By 6 o'clock that evening, I was back at the mansion. I didn't waste a second. I had already called a professional moving crew, a team of locksmiths, and my private security detail. While the movers carefully packed my high-end art pieces, my designer wardrobe, and the custom Italian furniture I had personally purchased, the locksmiths were busy reprogramming every smart lock in the house. In my previous life, I had let them stay in this house while I slaved away, paying the mortgage. Not this time. The front gates burst open just as the last moving truck pulled out of the driveway. Greg pulled up in a battered, yellow taxi. He didn't even have enough cash to pay the driver, resulting in a screaming match at the gate. Behind him, Evelyn limped out of a second cab, leaning heavily on a cheap wooden cane, looking disheveled and frantic. "Jane!" Greg yelled, charging up the front steps as security guards blocked the front door. "What is the meaning of this? Who are these men? Why are the locks changed?" I stood on the second-floor balcony, holding a glass of chilled champagne, looking down at them like bugs under a microscope. "This house is registered under my personal premarital trust, Greg," I called, down, my voice crisp and clear in the evening air. "You never put a single dollar into the down payment, nor have you ever paid a cent toward the property taxes. As of 5 minutes ago, you and your mother are officially trespassing." Evelyn shrieked, waving her cane in the air. "You ungrateful brat. This is my son's house. He let you live here. You can't kick a pregnant woman out onto the street. It's illegal." "Call the police then, Evelyn." I smiled, taking a slow sip of champagne. "Let them review the deed. Oh, and while you're at it, tell them about the $60,000 worth of property damage you caused in my master bedroom yesterday. I've already filed a formal police report for felony vandalism." Greg's face turned ashen. "Felony vandalism? Jane, she's my mother. She's carrying my future brother or sister. She's carrying the child of a 24-year-old fitness trainer who is currently uploading her hotel tape to every gossip blog in the city," I corrected coldly. Right on cue, Greg's phone began to chime relentlessly. Notification after notification flooded his screen. Jace had followed through on his threat. Having realized Evelyn was completely broke, he had released the video online, tagging Greg, his employer, and all of Evelyn's high society friends. Greg dropped his phone onto the driveway. His face drained of all color as he read the headlines popping up on his news feed. Prominent clerk's 55-year-old mother caught in scandal with boy toy using stolen funds. "Oh, and Greg." I pointed toward the driveway curb. "I left your personal belongings right over there." Stacked neatly beside the gate were 3 black trash bags containing his cheap suits, his old shoes, and the second-hand bicycle with training wheels I had bought him earlier. "Your flight to New York leaves tomorrow morning, Miss Jane," my security chief whispered beside me. "Everything in the house has been secured, and the eviction notices have been legally served." "Thank you, Mark," I said. I turned back into the house, closing the balcony doors behind me, leaving Greg and Evelyn screaming at the iron gates as the evening rain began to pour. 3 weeks later, the morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows of my new corner office on the 45th floor of the corporate headquarters in Manhattan. Below me, Central Park looked like a lush green ribbon winding through the concrete jungle. I adjusted the lapels of my tailored white suit, sitting down at my mahogany desk. A steaming cup of artisanal espresso sat beside my laptop. My administrative assistant, Sarah, walked in with a silver tray bearing my morning briefing papers and a legal folder. "Good morning, Regional Manager Jane," Sarah said with a bright smile. "The Q3 expansion reports are ready for your review. Also, your lead family law attorney, Mr. Harrison, is on line 1. I picked up the phone. "Harrison, give me the good news." "Jane," Mr. Harrison's crisp voice echoed over the receiver. "The divorce filing has been processed under the fast-track high net worth protocol. Because we provided irrefutable proof of financial fraud, marital deception, and property destruction, the judge has issued a temporary freezing order on all assets Greg attempted to claim." "How are our guests doing back home?" I asked, leaning back in my leather executive chair. Harrison let out a dry laugh. "It's a complete catastrophe for them. After you evicted them, Greg tried to use his corporate card to check his mother into a private clinic. Naturally, the card was declined. He then tried to take out an emergency loan using your mansion as collateral." "Let me guess," I smiled. "Bank fraud." "Precisely," Harrison confirmed. "The bank flagged the forged signature. Immediately, the police opened a criminal investigation into Greg for attempted fraud. To avoid immediate arrest, he had to drain his entire retirement savings to pay off his legal defense fees." "And Evelyn? Her high-risk pregnancy is turning into an absolute nightmare," Harrison reported. "Without your financial backing, she was forced into a state-run public hospital. She's suffering from severe gestational hypertension and early-stage diabetes. Because she refused the doctor's advice to terminate her medical bills are stacking up to thousands of dollars a day. Greg is currently working 2 night shifts as a security guard just to pay for her basic bed fee." A deep, satisfying warmth spread through my chest. In my past life, I was the one working myself to the bone, doing her laundry by hand, enduring her screams, paying hundreds of thousands of dollars while she lived like a queen. Now, the burden had returned to the rightful owner. "Keep the pressure on, Harrison," I ordered coldly. "Serve the civil lawsuit for $60,000 in property damages next week. I want every single cent." He earns garnished before he even sees his paycheck. Consider it done, Jane. While I was closing multi-million-dollar corporate deals in New York, Greg and Evelyn were drowning in the swamp they had created. Having been fired from his office job due to the public scandal caused by Jace's video, Greg was forced to rent a tiny, windowless basement apartment in a dangerous part of town. The air smelled of mold and sewage, a far cry from the gated mansion he had grown accustomed to. Evelyn lay on a sagging mattress in the corner, her face swollen, her gray hair messy and unwashed. She was 7 months pregnant now, her abdomen painfully distended, her body failing under the immense strain. Greg, Evelyn whimpered, clutching her chest. Where is my organic fruit platter? The doctor said I need fresh vitamin C. This cheap soup is making me vomit. Greg, wearing a stained uniform from his night shift security job, slammed a plastic bowl onto the wobbly nightstand. His eyes were bloodshot, his face thin and gaunt. Shut up, Mom. Greg screamed, his voice shaking with pure exhaustion. I just worked a 16-hour shift. I don't have money for organic fruit. Do you know how much your blood pressure medication cost today? $400. I had to sell my watch just to buy this soup. Don't you talk to your mother like that. Evelyn wailed, tears smearing her pale face. I gave birth to you. I suffered for you. If it weren't for that barren bitch Jane, we wouldn't be in this mess. You should have forced her to give us her money. Force her? Greg laughed bitterly, pulling out his phone to reveal a court summons. She sued me, Mom. The court garnished 70% of my wages for the damage you did to her gown and vanity. I have $80 left in my bank account. Just then, the thin wooden door of the basement apartment was kicked open. Jace Miller walked in, accompanied by 2 large, tattooed men. Jace was no longer wearing his fancy gym clothes. He looked desperate, his eyes frantic. Where's my money, Greg? Jace barked, stepping into the cramped room. The court ordered child support prepayments since your mom named me as the father. I got a legal notice saying I'm liable for her medical bills if you don't pay. Greg jumped up, grabbing an empty glass bottle from the floor. Get out. We don't have any money. You ruined my family with that video. Ruined your family? Jace sneered, signaling the 2 men behind him. Your old lady lied to me. She swore she was rich. I spent 3 months taking her to expensive dinners on my credit cards, expecting a big payout. Now I'm in debt. 50 grand because of her. Before Greg could swing the bottle, one of the men stepped forward, grabbing Greg by the throat and slamming him against the damp concrete wall. Evelyn screamed, scrambling backward on the mattress. Don't hurt my boy. Don't hurt him. Pay up, old woman, Jace growled, leaning over her bed. Or my friends here will make sure you give birth right on this filthy floor. In absolute desperation, Greg gagged out a sentence. New York. Jane is in New York. She has millions. I'll get the money from her. Jace paused, gesturing for his friend to loosen his grip on Greg's throat. New York. Yes. Greg gasped, rubbing his bruised neck, tears of terror streaming down his face. She's the regional manager at corporate. Her office is in Manhattan. She has a $100,000 monthly salary. I'll go to New York, I'll force her to sign a settlement, and I'll give you half. Jace eyed him suspiciously, then spat on the floor. You have 3 days, Greg. If you don't come back with a check signed by your ex-wife, I'm turning your mom over to the debt collectors. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon in Manhattan. I was standing in the lobby of my luxury apartment building, wearing an ivory trench coat, waiting for my private driver to bring the car around. Suddenly, a disheveled, soaking wet figure burst through the revolving glass doors, bypassing the front desk security. Jane. I turned around. Standing in the center of the pristine marble lobby was Greg. He looked like a homeless man. His clothes were soaked through, his shoes were torn at the toes, and his face was bruised and pale. He smelled of sweat and cheap alcohol. The building's security guards immediately moved forward to restrain him, but I raised a calm hand, stopping them. Let him speak, I said quietly. Greg rushed forward, falling to his knees right on the polished marble floor, grabbing at the hem of my coat with trembling, filthy hands. Jane, please, Greg sobbed, his voice echoing through the grand lobby. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I know I was a terrible husband. I know I took you for granted. I looked down at him, my expression entirely devoid of emotion. Get up, Greg. You're embarrassing yourself. Jane, you have to help me. Greg wept, looking up at me with bloodshot, desperate eyes. Mom is dying in a public ward. The debt collectors are going to kill me. Jace is threatening us. Just give me $500,000. That's nothing to you now. You make $1 million a year. I let out a soft, dry laugh that cut through his desperate wailing. $500,000? I leaned down slightly, looking him straight in the eye. Greg, Do you remember what you told me in my past life when I asked you why you drained my savings account? Greg blinked, confused. Past life? You told me that a human life was priceless, and that taking care of your mother was a blessing I should be grateful for. I whispered, my voice dripping with icy venom. You told me that what was mine was yours, and what was yours was hers. I stood up straight, smoothing down my trench coat. So Greg, enjoy your blessing. Jane. No. Greg screamed, reaching out to grab my legs. I'm your husband. We're together for 10 years. You can't be this heartless. You owe me. I owe you nothing, I said coldly. In fact, you owe me $60,000. For property damage, $50,000 for stolen jewelry, and 10 years of my wasted youth. I motioned to the 4 large security guards standing nearby. Throw this trespasser out, I ordered. And if he sets foot near this building, again have him arrested for harassment. Jane. Greg shrieked as the guards grabbed him by his arms, dragging him backward through the revolving doors into the pouring rain outside. You monster. You'll burn in hell for this. I didn't even turn around to watch. I stepped into my heated luxury sedan, adjusted my gloves, and told the driver to head to the airport for my afternoon conference in London. 2 months later, I returned to my home city for the final divorce hearing and criminal sentencing. The courtroom was quiet, filled only with the mechanical clicking of the court reporter's typewriter and the stern presence of the judge. I sat at the plaintiff's table, wearing a crisp black suit, flanked by Mr. Harrison and my top legal team. On the defense side sat Greg. He looked like a skeleton covered in skin. His hair was patchy, his posture broken, wearing an oversized orange prison jumpsuit. He had been arrested 3 weeks ago for attempting to sell forged land deeds to pay off Jace's thugs. Beside him in a wheelchair sat Evelyn. The 55-year-old woman looked 70. The pregnancy had taken a devastating toll on her body. She had suffered a massive stroke during labor 2 weeks prior. The baby had been born severely premature with multiple organ complications, currently kept alive only by expensive hospital machinery that neither Greg nor Evelyn could pay for. Jace Miller was sitting in the gallery behind them, wearing handcuffs flanked by 2 police officers. He had been arrested for felony extortion, blackmail, and illegal loan shark operations. The judge slammed his gavel down, his voice echoing authoritatively through the chamber. In the matter of Jane Sterling v. Gregory Sterling, this court finds clear, overwhelming evidence of systematic financial fraud, marital deception, intentional property destruction, and forgery on the part of the defendant, Gregory Sterling. The judge looked over his glasses at Greg with intense disgust. The marriage is officially dissolved. Under the terms of the judgment, Mr. Sterling is ordered to pay full restitution to Ms. Jane Sterling in the amount of $320,000. All marital property claims by the defendant are hereby dismissed with prejudice. Greg didn't even lift his head. He just stared at the wooden table, tears silently dripping onto his orange jumpsuit. Furthermore, the judge continued, picking up the criminal file, regarding the charges of bank fraud, deed forgery, and felony assault. Gregory Sterling is hereby sentenced to 8 years in state prison without the possibility of early parole. Evelyn let out a choked, raspy scream from her wheelchair, her slurred speech barely understandable due to her stroke paralysis. My boy, my baby. As for Evelyn Sterling, the judge stated coldly, due to her extensive involvement in the destruction of property and conspiracy to commit bank fraud, her pension and state benefits are hereby permanently garnished to settle her outstanding medical and legal debts. She will be transferred to a state-managed long-term care facility. Jace Miller was sentenced to 6 years for extortion and blackmail. As the officers stepped forward to pull Greg out of his chair and lead him away, in chains, he turned his sunken, hollow eyes toward me one last time. Jane, Greg whimpered, his voice barely a breath. You destroyed us. I stood up from my chair, holding my leather briefcase, looking at him with absolute, unyielding coldness. No, Greg, I said, my voice ringing clear across the courtroom. I didn't destroy you. I just stopped saving you. 6 months later, the sun was setting over the Manhattan skyline, painting the clouds in brilliant shades of gold and purple. I stood on the balcony of my penthouse apartment, enjoying the crisp evening breeze. In my hand was a glass of vintage red wine. My phone buzzed on the glass table beside me. It was an email update from Mr. Harrison. I opened it and read through the final status reports. Greg was serving his 8-year sentence in a maximum security state facility, working 12-hour shifts in the prison laundry for 50 cents an hour, the exact amount he used to claim my hard work was worth. Evelyn remained in a low-end state nursing home, paralyzed and forgotten, her days spent staring at cold concrete walls, surrounded by the very poor people she used to look down upon. The premature baby had been taken into state custody and placed with a loving, vetted adoptive family through a reputable charity, a charity I anonymously funded with a $500,000 donation. I set the phone down. In my past life, I died on a cold clinic floor, my blood staining my hands, murdered by the people I had spent 10 years supporting. I died a victim of my own weakness, trapped in a cage of misplaced loyalty and fake love. This time, I had torn that cage apart with my own hands. I raised my wine glass toward the glowing skyline, toasted to the clear, beautiful night air, and took a slow, satisfying sip. My life was finally my own.